A body racked with head injuries, open sores, bone fractures, and broken needles in his arms, an apparent victim of terrible neglect and abuse. But this was no ordinary derelict. This was Howard Hughes.
And he said, if you took one look at me, you could never represent me.
How could this happen to the richest man in America? The 5th of April, 1976. Dr. Jack Titus of the Methodist Hospital in Houston, Texas, receives an unusual phone call. He's told that the body of a man named John T. Conover is being transferred from a Houston airport to the hospital's morgue. Utmost secrecy is required because Conover is an alias for Howard Hughes. The famous billionaire has died. For more than 50 years, Hughes had lived in the public spotlight. First as a dashing heir to a fortune, maverick filmmaker, and record-setting test pilot. Then as a brilliant engineer, reckless Hollywood playboy, and ruthless businessman. And finally, as a reclusive eccentric whose behavior was often described as bizarre, maybe bordering on insanity. Upon first seeing the body, Dr. Titus, the hospital's chief pathologist, found that Hughes was remarkably emaciated and dehydrated. It appeared that Hughes had died just before reaching the hospital. Initially, doctors told the media that it seemed to be an ordinary death of an extraordinary person, but that was far from the truth. At the autopsy, conducted to find out why Hughes died, doctors also found many clues about the billionaire's life, and what they discovered was shocking. Today, looking at the autopsy and his life through the lens of modern medical science and psychology, we can identify telltale injuries and behavioral patterns that reveal what really happened to Howard Hughes. At his death, he was 6'2" and weighed just 42 kilos. Numerous scars and bone fractures were detected throughout his body.
He had a sore oozing through his head, a bone protruding through his shoulder, and 6 broken hypodermic needles in his arm.
This X-ray, taken at the autopsy, shows at least 4 of the broken needles. Officially, chronic kidney failure was cited as the cause of death, but unofficially there were whispers that Howard Hughes had suffered from terrible neglect and years of massive drug use. The media reported sensational accounts of his last days, a bedridden eccentric recluse with long hair and overgrown fingernails exhibiting intense personal phobias and neurotic behavior. Throughout America, people wondered, how could such a wealthy, handsome, powerful person come to this horrible end? What happened to Howard Hughes? During his life, Howard Hughes was a man of extraordinary accomplishments and notorious eccentricities. As an aeronautical engineer, his innovative designs made him a pioneer in aviation history. And as a test pilot, he set several world speed and distance records, bringing him enormous fame.
US pilot Howard Hughes has just flown across America faster than any man has ever done it before, at an average speed of 332 miles per hour, breaking his own previous record.
As a film producer, he was a rebellious maverick, spending wildly, always testing the boundaries of senses, demanding perfection, and giving the world Jean Harlow and Jane Russell. As an industrialist, he championed advancements in aerospace, satellite, and spy technology. And as a financier, he was the first of the great Las Vegas land grabbers.
He was an intrinsic risk taker. It was one of the reasons he was such a successful filmmaker and businessman.
But along the way, Hughes became notorious for another reason: strange behavior. Stories of disappearing acts, bizarre rituals, and movie-watching marathons, sometimes lasting for months. Compulsive note-taking, making lists of instructions, repeated ad nauseum in obsessive detail. A man fixated on germs, yet refusing to change his clothes or bathe. A man with deep, intense secrets. How did Howard Hughes get this way? The answer may lie in clues that date back to his childhood.
His mother had so many fears, had so many anxieties, had so many concerns with dirt. From a very, very young age, she was actively inculcating in him the fear, the worry, the checking, the washing.
Mom, by the way, was extremely germ-phobic, and which is something she would pass on to little Howard.
Because of his mother's fears, Hughes had a sheltered, lonely childhood with few friends, and he grew up to be a shy, introverted adult who was uncomfortable in crowds. This was often misconstrued as arrogance, but money compensated for much of his socially awkward behavior. Howard Hughes was born heir to a huge family fortune. His father had invented a revolutionary oil well drill bit and used entrepreneurial savvy to market it around the world. The Hughes Tool Company was a huge cash cow, and it allowed Howard to do just about anything he wanted. This included his first aeroplane flight at age 15, a $5 thrill ride in a World War I era flying boat.
It was to forever change Howard Hughes's life. Howard was mesmerized, he was hypnotized by it, and he felt completely at home in the skies. Howard Hughes was a man who always related better to machines than he did to people. He would go on to do some great things as an inventor, an aviator, but his relationships with people would be far less successful.
Hughes' social awkwardness may be attributed in part to a sheltered childhood that ended abruptly when both his parents died within 2 years. At 18, he was an orphan. Opportunistically, he legally declared himself an adult and seized full control of the Hughes Tool Company and the entire family fortune. But Hughes didn't want to be a drill bit salesman in Houston. He wanted to fly airplanes and make movies in Hollywood. It was a strange dichotomy for the shy Howard Hughes. He had the money and the audacity to pursue fame and power in the public arena, but once he achieved it, he became a victim and prisoner of his own success and neurosis. At the autopsy in April 1976, doctors found numerous scars and bone fractures throughout the body of Howard Hughes. Each is a clue to understanding his bizarre behavior. Clearly visible was evidence that he'd cracked his skull at least 3 times. The first serious accident happened almost 50 years earlier in 1928, during the filming of his most famous movie, Hell's Angels. The movie was the most expensive production in Hollywood's short history. It introduced Jean Harlow to the world, and it was personally written and directed by Howard Hughes. He wanted complete control of the film. This included doing some of the risky stunt flying himself against everyone's advice.
He had all kinds of pilots working for him, and one was supposed to make a real radical maneuver near the ground, and he wouldn't do it. Then this pilot was a veteran of World War I, and he said, "Mr. Hughes, this plane just will not do that."
Howard said, "I'll do it myself," and climbed in the cockpit.